welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something absolutely wild, a truly radical premise. We're going to look at how the most famous poem in Eastern philosophy, a text literally recited by millions of people for thousands of years, actually maps flawlessly to modern theoretical physics. And we aren't talking about loose poetic metaphors here. We are looking at a rigorous, highly specific mathematical translation between ancient spiritual concepts and the absolute cutting-edge geometry of the universe.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to cover 1. The Heart Sūtra paradox, 2. Math, form, and emptiness, 3. Proof 1, form equals emptiness, 4. Proof 2, emptiness creates form, 5. The holographic boundary, and 6. Physics of 5 skandhas. I know it sounds like some pretty dense math, but don't worry, we're going to break this down step by step.
All right, Section 1, the Heart Sūtra paradox. Let's jump right into the core mystery we're trying to unravel today.
Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Now, if you're familiar with Mahayana Buddhism, you definitely know this line. It's the central thesis of the Heart Sūtra. Millions of people have chanted this for thousands of years. For the longest time, it's just been treated as this beautiful, maybe slightly confusing philosophical paradox, right? A meditation on how reality is fundamentally ungraspable.
Well, what if I told you it's not just ancient poetry? I want to completely shatter your expectations here. What if these ancient thinkers weren't just using spiritual metaphors, but were literally describing a rigorous mathematical boundary identity? What if they were laying out the exact geometric structure of the universe?
So let's get right into it. Section 2. Math, form, and emptiness. We need to translate these ancient Sanskrit terms into their exact modern geometric equivalents.
First up is rupa, which translates to form. In theoretical physics, this perfectly aligns with the discrete quantized packing states of the E₃ root lattice. Basically, it's everything that physically manifests through projection. Every single particle, every field, anything you can observe. That's our physical universe. But then we have shunyata, or emptiness. Mathematically, this corresponds to the zero-signature scalar equilibrium of the unmanifested T₃₂ algebra. You can think of this as the absolute raw substrate of reality, the completely unconditioned state before any physical projection even happens.
When we look at this through the E₃ by T₃₂ conformal field theory framework, this massive multidimensional geometric structure, something absolutely incredible happens. The Heart Sūtra identity just naturally emerges. And the craziest part? It does this with zero free parameters, literally none. You don't have to tweak the math or fudge the numbers to make it fit. The geometry inherently dictates this exact relationship.
Okay, let's look at the actual proofs. Section 3, Proof 1. Form equals emptiness. Think of this like a cosmic detective story. We have to prove this claim goes both ways, starting with form mathematically equaling emptiness.
Enter our first major theorem, the trace-vanishing theorem. Now, to ground this very complex math into a super simple concept, imagine if you could somehow mathematically sum up the entire physical universe. Take every single particle, every field, every excitation, and add it all together. This theorem proves that if you map out the entire conditioned structure across the exceptional Jordan algebra, the grand total is exactly zero.
This equation right here is the proof. It essentially shows that all conditioned form cancels itself out. The total algebraic footprint of our entire physical universe on that unconditioned background substrate, it is completely non-existent.
Let me break that down a bit more clearly for you. In the E₃ root system, there are 240 root vectors, right? Well, they all come in signed pairs. So every single particle has a conjugate. Every act of creation is perfectly matched by an act of annihilation. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the matter sector, the gauge sector, or the shadow sector. They are all independently traceless. The universe literally has absolutely no net algebraic content. The total sum of all form is exactly zero. So, mathematically speaking, form truly is emptiness.
But what about the other way around? Section 4. Proof 2. Emptiness creates form. Because as the sutra says, emptiness doesn't just sit there remaining empty.
This leads us to our second theorem, known as the Cayley-Dickson emergence. This theorem shows how the substrate of reality, that absolute emptiness we were just talking about, actually naturally fractures. It creates these internal boundaries, and those boundaries are exactly what we experience as physical form.
To really grasp why this happens, we have to look at the T₃₂ trigintaduonionic substrate. This is a massive 32-dimensional algebra, and as you build up into these crazy high dimensions, something profound occurs. Normal multiplication starts to fail.
the math actually breaks down and produces things called zero divisors. It's kind of like if you typed two non-zero numbers into a calculator, hit multiply, and it just spat out zero. That is essentially what is happening at the very foundation of reality.
And these zero divisors are absolutely crucial to our second proof. When two non-zero elements multiply to equal 0, it acts as a natural boundary. It literally fractures the smooth, undifferentiated continuum of emptiness into distinct, separable chunks. And that right there is how discreteness, which is form, emerges directly from the substrate's own algebraic defects. So form isn't some external stuff imposed on the universe from the outside, it's literally just emptiness interacting with its own internal boundaries. How wild is that?
So how does this all tie together? Section 5, the holographic boundary. How do these two opposing ideas, form summing to 0 and emptiness fracturing into form, actually meet to create the reality we experience?
They meet exactly at the holographic boundary, and this is mediated by something called the BRST operator. You can think of it like a mathematical sorting hat. Its whole job is to select physical states. But for a state to be selected, it has to meet two super strict conditions simultaneously. It has to be empty, meaning it has a zero trace and is perfectly balanced. But it also has to be formed, meaning it sits right on one of those zero divisor boundaries we just covered. And this homological algebraic equation is the ultimate mathematical expression of the Heart Sutra's claim. It shows that physical reality exists precisely at this holographic boundary. It's the exact intersection where a state is completely empty of net content, but simultaneously structured and formed by these algebraic boundaries.
And that brings us to our final act. Section 6, Physics of 5 Skandhas, because the sutra doesn't stop at just physical form.
It famously goes on to claim that this exact same rule applies to feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, the 5 ancient human aggregates, or skandhas. And look at this mapping. It is flawlessly aligned with specific GeV eigenvalues in physical sectors. Rupa, physical form, maps straight to first-generation fermions. Vedana, feeling or sensation, maps perfectly to the 54 GeV gauge sector. Sanya, perception, shares that same sector as pattern recognition. Sankhara, mental formations, aligns with second-generation fermions. And incredibly, Vijnana, consciousness itself, maps perfectly to the absolute zero kernel, acting as the one-dimensional observer correction operator. Every single aspect of the human experience is represented here. And thanks to our trace vanishing theorem, every one of these individual sectors independently equals emptiness.
I really cannot stress this enough. This entire massive architectural mapping, connecting advanced theoretical physics to a 2,000-year-old philosophical text, is accomplished with exactly 0 free parameters. Everything locks in perfectly. The geometry dictates the philosophy, and the philosophy absolutely predicts the geometry.
And this brings us to the ultimate realization, the idea of non-reification. The universe is not made of stuff. It isn't a collection of things. It is made entirely of structure. And that structure perfectly, elegantly sums to 0. Reality is, quite literally, a structured 0.
So I want to leave you with this final, mind-bending thought. If your physical form, your feelings, your perceptions, and even your very consciousness are simply the natural mathematical projections of a boundary where emptiness actually fractures, how will you experience your own structured 0 today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.